There was no broken window, no struggle, no sign of a rushed goodbye. Just an empty hallway, a quiet house, and a partner who said she simply went for a walk and never came back. But beneath that house, beneath a century-old garage floor, something waited. A silence thicker than grief, a truth darker than disappearance. And the man who claimed to love her was standing over it the entire time. Before the headlines, before the investigation, before the betrayal that would shake an entire community, Helen Bailey was a bright, beloved voice in children's literature. Author of the Electra Brown series, storyteller and blogger. A woman with an easy laugh and a rare warmth. She had spent years writing about growing pains, young friendships, and the messy, hopeful journey of becoming whole. And after the tragic drowning of her first husband, John, Helen spoke openly about grief, guiding thousands through loss via her blog Planet Grief. She rebuilt her life slowly, tenderly, piece by piece. And then she met Ian Stewart. He wasn't a whirlwind romance. He was a quiet comfort, a gentle presence, a man who stepped into Helen's life at a moment when she needed stability more than anything. To her closest friends, Helen's second chance at love felt like a gift, a patch of sunlight after years of shadow. No one imagined the darkness waiting behind. When Ian Stewart moved into Helen's £1.3 million home in Royston, Hertfordshire, he blended into her world smoothly. Too smoothly, investigators would later say. He cooked, walked her dachshund, Boris. He helped manage household routines and offered comfort when grief resurfaced. And little by little, he became the center of Helen's every day. But in her final months, something shifted. Helen felt tired more often, sleepy at odd times, disoriented in strange ways. She mentioned the fatigue to friends. She chalked it up to stress. She assumed it was life catching up to her. But Ian Stewart had access to something that prosecutors would later describe as the key to everything: his own prescribed sleeping medication. It would take a year and 2 murder trials before the full picture came into focus. But by then, Helen had already been claimed by a truth she never saw coming. April 2016 should have been ordinary. A month of writing, walking Boris, planning a wedding, booking holidays, living in the quiet routines she had fought so hard to rebuild. There was no sign she wanted to vanish. No sign she was preparing to leave. No sign she was overwhelmed or frightened. On April 11th, neighbors saw her outside, moving through the day as she always had. Hours later, Ian Stewart would tell police she left the house on foot, possibly with the dog, and never returned. But Helen didn't walk anywhere without her essentials. She didn't leave without her phone. She didn't disappear without telling someone. And she never, not once, left Boris behind. The story Ian gave didn't match the woman Helen was. But at the time, police had no reason to push deeper. No evidence of a crime. No sign of disturbance. Just a vanished author. And a partner who seemed oddly comfortable calling it stress. Ian reported Helen missing on April 15th. 4 days after he claimed she walked out. 4 days of silence. 4 days of inaction. 4 days of explanations that drifted with every retelling. He said she needed space. He said she was overwhelmed. He said she'd taken her dog. Then said maybe she hadn't. Then added she might be visiting friends. Nothing lined up. Police began searching local walking routes. Volunteers joined in. Posters went up. Social media filled with pleas. But Helen's purse was still inside the house. Her glasses, her car, her half-finished manuscript, her medication, her schedule pinned neatly to the notice board. She hadn't walked out of her life. Someone had closed the door behind her. What investigators didn't know yet was that the answer wasn't on the path outside her home. It was buried underneath it. As days passed, Helen's disappearance stopped feeling like an absence and began feeling like an impossibility. Friends insisted she wouldn't leave voluntarily. Her editor confirmed she was mid-project and deeply committed. Family members said she had plans laid out through the summer. She was preparing for a wedding, booking trips, writing chapters. Nothing in her life suggested leaving was an option. Police searched local woods and walking paths, but in their search notes one phrase appeared again and again: "Dog not found." For Helen, Boris wasn't just a pet. He was her emotional anchor after losing her first husband. She brought him everywhere. She didn't go for long walks without him. The absence of Boris from all search locations was more than unsettling. It was a clue, one investigators wouldn't fully understand until much later. In the first week after Helen vanished, Ian Stewart's behavior hovered between calm and strangely detached. He told officers she probably needed time alone. He suggested she might have gone to one of her grief retreats, even though she hadn't booked one in years. He claimed she'd mentioned leaving suddenly, though no one else recalled such conversations. He repeated, almost rehearsed, that she was stressed, but something about his tone unsettled investigators. There were no frantic searches on his part, no emotional collapse, no desperate attempts to call hospitals or friends, no late-night bangs on doors asking for help. Instead, he kept the house quiet, still and unmoved, like he already knew no one would come back through the door. One of the first tangible pieces of suspicion came from a seemingly insignificant moment. Police requested to search the house more thoroughly. Ian resisted, not outright, subtly. He delayed. He questioned the need. He cast doubt on procedures. He gave reasons why certain rooms were private or messy or not relevant. He wasn't panicked. He was calculated. He kept steering investigators away from the garage area, even though it was part of the property. Officers didn't have a warrant yet, so they couldn't push deeper. But the hesitation was noted and documented. A partner with nothing to hide doesn't obscure doorways. A grieving fiancé doesn't block investigators from rooms. It was the beginning of a pattern, one that would soon lead to the truth hidden beneath concrete. As police dug into Stewart's history, a troubling portrait formed. Ian Stewart wasn't simply a quiet widower. His first wife, Diane Stewart, had died suddenly years earlier. Her passing had been ruled natural at the time, epilepsy-related. But investigators noted the similarities. Two partners, two sudden disappearances or deaths, two stories that hinged solely on Ian's version of events. And then, a chilling detail. Stewart had been given Zopiclone, a strong sleeping medication, for years. He had access. He had supply. And Helen had been experiencing unexplained exhaustion for months. Her symptoms aligned eerily with the side effects of that drug. The more police learned, the more Stewart's facade cracked. He wasn't a grieving partner. He was a gatekeeper of secrets, and the only person with both motive and opportunity. By late June, police expanded their search to include Helen's home more thoroughly. Officers returned with heightened suspicion and a sharper eye for detail. Inside, nothing looked violently disturbed, but everything felt curated. Stewart had maintained routines, taking out trash, tidying rooms, offering cups of tea to officers. He kept his voice even, his explanations consistent, but consistency can be a mask, and eventually it slips. During a later interview, Stewart suggested Helen may have fallen into the garden, then immediately retracted the idea. He mentioned she might have gone to London, though her Oyster card hadn't been used. He offered too many answers, too many scenarios, Too many rehearsed uncertainties. Investigators realized something vital. Stewart wasn't providing information. He was managing it, directing it, filtering it, guarding it, and cameras mounted around the property recorded nothing. He claimed Helen had unplugged them, but timestamps showed they'd been disabled earlier, while she was still alive. The puzzle pieces were aligning slowly and silently. But one area of the house remained unsearched. One space Ian continually downplayed. And beneath that space lay the answer. By early July, investigators knew Helen hadn't walked away. They knew she hadn't left town, hadn't staged her disappearance, hadn't run from her life. No money withdrawn, no belongings taken, no CCTV sightings, no digital trace. Every lead pointed to one conclusion: Helen never left her home at all. And now, police were certain the answers weren't out there. They were within the walls of Hartwell Lodge. A new search order was issued, one that allowed officers to investigate every inch of the property, including the garage Ian Stewart had subtly discouraged them from entering. The moment they stepped inside the garage, a quiet tension filled the space. Nothing looked unusual: boxes, tools, and old storage bins. But something about the floor felt wrong. And in the back corner, beneath a layer of timber panels and discarded items, they found it. Concealed access panel, hidden opening, old hinges, weathered edges, a space that belonged to the house, but wasn't meant to be seen. They shined a flashlight inside. What they saw changed everything. A century-old brick-lined cesspit lay beneath the garage floor, an outdated sewage chamber most modern homeowners never even realized existed. But Stewart knew it was there. He knew because he used it. Inside that dark cavity, investigators saw something wrapped, something heavy, something deliberately placed. Police halted the search immediately. Every breath in that garage shifted into disbelief and dread. Forensic teams arrived. The area was sealed, the panel removed. And when specialists descended into the void, they found human remains, a body wrapped in layers of material, positioned with care, concealed with intent. And beside the remains, another heartbreak. Helen's dachshund, Boris, the dog Stewart claimed she walked away with, had never left the house either. The truth was no longer a theory. It was a scene. One Ian Stewart had been living above, eating above, sleeping above, pretending to mourn above. Police notified Helen's family with the care such a moment demands. The grief was immediate, the disbelief devastating. But grief now had answers. And suspicion now had evidence. When confronted with the discovery, Stewart didn't collapse into grief or shock. He didn't flee. He didn't confess. He simply shifted his story again. He claimed he had no idea how Helen ended up there. He blamed kidnappers, strangers. He insinuated Helen had enemies. He suggested she might have fallen. Each explanation more implausible than the last. Investigators noted something chilling. He didn't ask if she was truly gone. He didn't ask when she died. He didn't ask what had been done to her. He only asked what police could prove. A grieving partner mourns. A guilty one calculates. And Stewart calculated every breath. Forensic teams began analyzing the cesspit and the house with painstaking detail. Inside the home they found a residue of zopiclone, Stewart's own prescribed sleeping medication, in Helen's system at levels indicating prolonged dosing, traces of cleaning agents in key areas, devices showing deleted searches, including queries about sedatives, items moved in unnatural patterns, suggesting physical staging, evidence that Helen and Boris were lowered into the pit, not fallen. Investigators reconstructed the timeline. Helen had been drugged. She had been incapacitated, long before she could have walked away. Boris had likely been harmed to remove the only witness she would never have left behind. Their bodies were hidden in the cesspit with deliberate planning. Stuart lived normally afterward, cooking, cleaning, sending messages, giving interviews, offering misleading clues. His calmness wasn't grief, it was control. As detectives examined finances, yet another devastating truth surfaced. Stuart stood to inherit Helen's estate. He had access to her accounts. He had been added to documents. He had an eye on both her wealth and her home. Police now believed Stuart's motive involved financial gain, control, and the removal of the one person standing between him and a comfortable future. Once combined with forensic evidence, Stuart's lies, inconsistencies, and history, the case was no longer a puzzle. It was a pattern, a blueprint, a method he had used before, as investigators would later confirm in the case of his first wife. On July 16, 2016, the day after Helen Bailey's remains were recovered, Ian Stuart was arrested. He did not protest. He did not cry. He did not ask the questions an innocent man asks. Instead, he leaned on the same strategy he had used for months: deflection, confusion, and a practiced calm. He maintained that kidnappers had taken Helen. He claimed he had been drugged too, though medical tests disproved it. He weaved a narrative of mysterious men and shadowy threats, a story with no evidence, no names, and no connection to Helen's life. Detectives had seen it all before. When a suspect's last tool is a story no one can verify. Stuart's arrest marked a turning point. The public, once invested in the missing person mystery, now saw something far darker. A man who had lived above the very place he hid his partner. A man who had participated in search efforts while knowing the truth. A man who had offered sympathy with a smile, while standing over a secret. He was charged with murder, fraud, preventing a lawful burial, and related offenses. And the case moved to court. In February 2017, Ian Stuart stood before a jury at St. Albans Crown Court. The prosecution laid out their narrative. He had secretly drugged Helen with Zopiclone, incapacitated her over weeks, staged her disappearance, murdered her inside their home, hid her body and her dogs in the underground cesspit. He lived for months maintaining a fabricated story. He planned to inherit her property, assets, and royalties. Stuart's defense offered a single alternative. He claimed two men named Nick and Joe had abducted Helen, but phone records disproved it. CCTV disproved it. Search histories disproved it. His own timeline contradicted itself. And crucially, he could not explain why Helen and Boris were found in a place only he could access. The jury listened as forensic experts described the conditions in the cesspit, as financial experts mapped Stuart's motives, and as investigators reconstructed his calculated behavior. But the most haunting moment came when the court revealed something the public had not expected. This wasn't the first time Stuart's partner had died under suspicious circumstances. During Stuart's trial for Helen's murder, investigators reopened the death of his first wife, Diane Stuart, who died in 2010. Her death had originally been attributed to epilepsy, but advances in forensic science, specifically the analysis of oxygen deprivation patterns, revealed a different story. Diane had not died naturally. Her death was consistent with asphyxiation. The pattern was undeniable. Two partners, two unexplained deaths, one common denominator. The revelation painted Stuart not as a man overwhelmed by grief, but as a man who used grief as camouflage. Years later, Stuart would be convicted for Diane's murder as well. But in 2017, As the truth emerged in Helen's trial, it sealed the jury's understanding of who he truly was. On February 22, 2017, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty of murder. Judge Andrew Bright delivered one of the strongest condemnations heard in a British courtroom. "I am firmly of the view that you pose a real danger to women with whom you form a relationship." Stewart was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 34 years. He refused to attend his own sentencing, the final gesture of a man who had tried to control every narrative and lost. He left behind a trail of devastation. 2 women dead, community shaken, families robbed of the futures they should have had. But he also left behind something he could never bury: the truth. Helen Bailey is remembered not for her tragic end, but for her vivid, generous life. Her books continued to inspire young readers. Her blog Planet Grief remains a refuge for widows navigating loss. Her humor, warmth, and resilience echo through the testimonies of friends, fans, and family who cherished her deeply. Her story prompted conversations about domestic abuse, hidden coercion, and the dangers faced by people in trusted relationships. And in every retelling, one message rings clear: Helen deserved safety. She deserved honesty. She deserved a life free from manipulation and harm. Tonight we honor not just the tragedy, but the woman behind the words. If you found this case fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant.